have set up to talk about. Um, Again, if you are just now tuning in, this is Yawnie, your DJ and dance junkie on the Batchelor. Hola, mommies and poppies. This is Yawnie, your DJ and dance junkie with today's dose of the dime. We have been having a lot of technical difficulties today, and I'm not quite sure what's going on, but we are going to push through, push forward, keep it moving, okay? So if you wanted to join into the show, because apparently I've been talking a long time and no one has heard me, you can do so at 646-929-0130. You can also go to thebatchelornews.airtime.pro so you can catch the show live. You can also go to my Facebook group. It's called The Dose of the Dime Radio Show, where you can catch me live right now. I'm on right now. Hi, guys. Hope that you guys have been able to tune in, and I'm thankful that you are here. I am sorry that it is late if you are just now tuning in. We've had a ton of technical difficulties today, but that's okay. We are here. We're going to make it work. I am doing a new time slot. We are pushing forward in this time slot. So basically, it's going to be every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. So please make sure you tune in. Check out your girl, see what she's talking about. So today we got a pretty juicy topic. We've been talking about relationships, like how to make relationships work and how to make things work better, especially when you're on the struggle bus in your relationship. And then also when to walk away. So we've been talking about some juicy stuff when it comes to that. So I do want to recap the things that we talked about last week when we talked about, when it is that we should be walking away. And of course, the number one things are always the no-brainers: cheating, addiction, especially when it comes to your money and your, money, drugs, alcohol. All of these things can be a problem in your relationship if you do not take care of this in the beginning. You also want to make note that abusive relationships are not just physical relationships. It can be emotionally abusive as well. And also dishonesty and neglect. Those were the top 5 things that I have said that those are no-brainers, that if these things are happening, you need to at least take a break from the relationship. I also said last week that nothing is absolutely unsalvageable, meaning that you can always save your relationship, but both people have to be willing to get in there and do the work. And that's the goal. You both have to be willing to get in there and do the work. If you're not willing to do the work, then nothing is going to happen. Okay. It's just going to be one person fighting against the world. And that sucks. I've been in that position and I understand. Sometimes you just got to walk away for your own sanity, especially if you're the one that is by yourself in this relationship. It's a whole thing. Okay. So let's talk more about it. We talked about last week that emotional intimacy was also a thing that needed to be taken care of. The reason why you got together, the reason why you guys stay together, the fun that you guys have, not just how they look, but how it feels when you're with them. You also want to continue to nurture these aspects of the relationship, okay? So with that being said, you want to continue to do your date nights. You want to continue to make sure that you keep them informed. Communication is king. Keep them informed of everything. If you are struggling, if things are going wrong within your friendships, or if things are going wrong at work, these are things that your partner needs to know. Because the minute that you unfortunately go off on your own and you have to, the minute that you go off on your own and you don't take care of these situations, it's going to probably be a problem, and it's going to be a problem for a long time. Okay. So what we want to do is definitely make sure that you keep the communications, the lines of communications open, and keep that information flowing both ways. So the other thing is, if you start to feel insecure, like you're overweight, or like You don't feel like you can do anything right. These things can be a problem too, especially, it's just one thing that if somebody is overly critical of your person, if they're overly critical of your person, this is not okay, because that's lightweight gaslighting. It's not something that you want to participate in. Honest discussions about health and hygiene should never, it should be loving, not disrespectful or critical, especially if it makes you feel like I'm not worth anything. That's the problem. And that's what causes, the codependency in a relationship, and then the low self-esteem and the lack of confidence. So if someone is making you feel less than, then you might want to start looking at the front door. And of course, again, I say again, nothing is ever going to be a space where you can't fix it, but both parties have to be invested. That's the name of the game. Both parties have to be invested. Okay. If you don't feel like you can be yourself, that's a problem, huge problem. And if you feel obligated to stay, meaning that you've spent this time, you've invested this time in this person, and so now you don't feel like you have any other place to go, or no one else will want you. That was one of the things that I told myself, is that no one else is going to want you. You're so $29.99 plus shipping and handling, years old. You have 3 kids. Nobody's going to want you. And that's not the case. Again, they've talked about one man's trash is another man's treasure. That is a wonderful way to say that this may not be the time to be with this person, and that there might be someone else out there waiting for you. But a lot of us stay too long looking at the closed door that we do not see the open window. And that's where our salvation is. I can't say that my breakup did not hurt, that my divorce did not hurt, but I can say that I've been blessed since then tremendously. Okay, I do want to take a break, and I want to make sure I pay the man. Talking about Feature Album Friday. And listen, this today is going to be Boys to Men. Who remembers Boys to Men? Listen, okay, so that was back in the day when they used to do that low conversation, that kind of talk that, hey girl. And then so in the middle of the song, so you can kind of, swoon over it. We love a Quiet Storm. We love a Boys to Men. And definitely Feature Album Friday is where they play 30 minutes of their entire discography. And so you get to listen to the different things that, they have produced and played all in their whole career. So this is going to be a fun time. It's going to be today at 5:30 Eastern Standard Time, and it's only for 30 minutes. So check it out. It costs you nothing. I'm sorry, not today. It's going to be Friday at 5:30 Eastern Standard Time. Also, do want to make sure you understand that Whisper Softly is also a whole show that they put on, and it's normally from it's every day but Saturday. So it's like Friday. So it was this Sunday through Friday. And it's at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So make sure you check that out. It's their version of the Quiet Storm. So if you were wanting to mellow the mood out in your house, and sometimes you just have to do that, just kind of shift the legs slow and put some slow songs on to kind of mellow the vibe in the house. That's a wonderful thing that you can do to kind of mellow the harsh, because sometimes it's crazy in the house, especially with the kids and everything else we got going on, especially in this post-COVID climate where politics and everything else, the family are always at bay with each other. Okay, so definitely want to make sure you take that time to check that out and see what you can find out on that. It's a wonderful show. You should definitely check it out, and it's going to be on thebatchelornews.airtime.pro. So make sure you tune in and check that out. So I think we have another word for our host, so we'll pause for the cause for that one and let that go right here on the Batchelor News Radio Network. Or maybe we won't. Maybe we will keep going. Wanted to address. It's called submission. We talked about it briefly last night on the Facebook group. We talked briefly about it, and submission is not necessarily what you guys think it is. Okay, submission that people hear that word, specifically women, hear that word and they go off. They go, I'm not about to submit to a man. And I do understand. I do. Don't get me wrong. But you have to, we submit all the time. We submit anytime that you drive your car. You're submitting to traffic laws. Anytime that you go into work, you're not necessarily taking orders, but you're submitting to things that might need to be done before other things. So that time that you use to, I mean, we submit as far as what we eat, where we're going, parenting, date night, even sex. We submit in sex. So the submission is not necessarily the problem. It is what submission has been bullied and built up to be. And I'm just very curious. I was very curious to see what our group thought. And it was kind of funny. So I wanted to make sure I checked out some of the some of the comments. So biblically, the act of submission is actually the act of allowing. Okay, so biblically it states that wives submit to your husbands as to the Lord, and husbands love your wives as Christ loves the church, and that's in Ephesians 5th chapter, 22nd to the 23rd verse. Obviously, a rough translation. Okay, so that doesn't sound like a bullying type of situation. It actually sounds more like a trade-off. It's a trade-off. And I'm not please understand that I am not a submissive zealot. I'm not that person. Okay. I'm not trying to sell submission, nor am I trying to, Bible thump anybody. However, I can tell you how I was raised. So my mother wholeheartedly believed in submission, and so did my dad. As a matter of fact, growing up, after she had passed away, my dad was very clear that, she was heads and tails higher in every aspect of her life, but she trusted him enough to allow his judgment to prevail over the house. And because of that, we were blessed. Okay. So, with that being said, she had an RN degree. She, was very well spoken. She was very well versed. And anything that my dad did, she was the backup for. And so when I say that, I felt like her calling was to support him. Now, am I saying that I felt like that was a beautiful thing? It may not be my calling, and it may not look like what everybody else's idea or version of submission should look like. And I was very curious to see what people thought about submission, because to me, submission is about leadership. It's about allowing someone to help direct the family. Now, submission is not okay. So the husband is supposed to be the head. And my father told me I had always been the head. My mother was 4 years older than my father, but she was like, I submit to him. And the husband is supposed to be the head, but the wife is who turns the neck. So what does that mean? She is the person that points out things that he needs to look at. These are the things that you need to look at. And this is why I wanted to bring this to attention, because there's a lot of things that we talked about within submission, but there's a lot of things that submission is absolutely not. And I wanted to address that piece. Okay. So what submission is not? Submission is not agreeing on everything. It's not. You won't. Or following some path that you don't agree with. It's not. It's not supposed to be. Good leadership means that you look to others to see their ideas. And if their ideas are good, then you utilize those ideas. So in a honest, submissive relationship, you're going to find that the wife has way more input than you would ever expected. My mom had input on everything. And my dad and my mom, if they didn't agree, they went with his way. But 9 times out of 10, they always agreed, because their goal was the furtherment of our family. And if your goal is to best your family, then why wouldn't you not want to become a unit and move forward that way? And that's kind of how I see submission. Okay. Submission does not require complete obedience from the wife to the husband, or vice versa. Okay. So what does that mean? It means that it's not meant to be a dog master relationship. It's meant to be a companionship. And a lot of people have this problem with this. This is trust me, this is a hot ticket topic, but my peers talked about things and when they're in agreement, but they made these decisions together. This is not ever a one person do and the other person follows type of deal. All right. Submission does not mean you do not try to influence your mate. Of course, you have to try and influence your mate. This is a partnership. Marriage is a partnership. So there should be healthy ways that you influence your mate. There should be, especially if you see your mate getting into some situations that might be a problem, like addiction. So yeah, it is absolutely for you to influence your mate. I mean, and consider it like this, okay? You and your partner have to agree in order to move forward in the relationship, okay? And you both invest time, you both invest money, you both invest your feelings into this relationship. It is to your benefit to move forward in a way that both of you can agree, okay? And if your husband or your wife is not doing something that, is conducive to the relationship, it is kind of your responsibility to absolutely pause and say, hey, this is what we need to be focusing on. So yeah, no, you do need to absolutely have total commitment and total agreement between both people. And I know, so I see in the comments, Sheila Scott Mosley says that I just do not like the word. I believe there's a better word, agreement due to communication. And I agree with that. I think the word has gotten a bad rap, specifically because of some of the, these unfortunate bad examples that we've been seeing. There's been people absolutely who have abused submission and run their family into the ground. And a lot of women will say, I will submit to a man that has proper leadership. And that's a beautiful thing. But they do have to prove that they have the leadership skills. And I'm with that. If you have a goal and you have a plan and you have laid out this plan to me, I have no problem jumping aboard on that plan. But if you don't have a plan, why should someone submit? It is definitely a conversation to be had. And I also made a post definitely that you need to talk about all these things prior to getting into a relationship. Before you get into a relationship, you need to talk about how you're going to handle the money, how you're going to handle moving forward in relationship style. Are you going to submit? Is this going to be a thing that you do? Are you going to choose to call it something different? However it is, you need to have these discussions prior to getting into a marriage relationship, okay? And submission does not mean that you get all of your strength and your joy and your purpose from your mate. You don't. That's not it. You have to be complete within yourself. You have got to be complete within yourself. If you are not complete within yourself, you are not going to be okay with your mate. And you've heard this before, but it's true. A whole person has to come into a marriage in order for two whole people have to come into a marriage in order for a marriage to work. Okay. And he cannot be your everything. And she cannot be your sole source of things that you rely. I mean, the person that you kick back on. You have got to have other places that you can go and other places that you can be, because it is absolutely imperative that you have two people that are whole and within themselves and are not codependent, because that's what ends up happening is you end up being codependent because you bump heads thinking now I'm a lifetime and this person's going to be my everything. Okay, so Stacey Shannon says, I'm fortunate to have been taught the positive aspects of how submission can be used in a relationship. And that's a beautiful thing. I love to hear that because submission can be a beautiful thing. My parents had it down pat. Now, I do want to step back and say not everything glistens as gold. So let's talk about that. There have been some very bad examples of submissive relationships that have, unfortunately given submission a bad rap. And there have been some aspects in people's relationship because we assume that men know how to lead. And unfortunately, not everybody knows how to lead. That's a reality. Not everybody knows how to lead. And it might be something that you bump your heads together and find out together. But yeah, definitely submission can be a powerful force in a relationship, but it may not be for you, because I am not a submission junkie. Please understand. So I do want to leave you with this on this topic. As John Piper of desiringgod.org talks about his definition, and it's a fairly decent one, so stay with me. Submission is defined as a calling of a wife to honor and affirm her husband's leadership, so to help him carry it through according to her gifts. Again, whatever information knowledge she has is only an asset to her husband. So if you're in a relationship that's a submissive one, and you are being told that, no, I don't really want to hear your input, that's not a submissive relationship. That's something different. A husband should treasure his wife's opinion. Now, of course, give it in a respectful tone. Of course, I don't want to go there, but if you give it in a respectful tone, everybody should be okay with having a conversation and going through and talking about these things, right? And so that you can be in a space where submission is safe and that leadership is effective, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so moving on. Submission at this level should probably not come into conversation until marriage is discussed. You should not be submissive to a boyfriend. Should not be investing money, stocks, time, and being submissive unless you are a unit, a solidified unit. Now, am I saying that it can't work? No, I'm not saying that, because I'm sure that there's an example of people who have made it work and they're only boyfriend and girlfriend. I'm saying, for the level of commitment that is required for submission to work and the level of leadership that is required for a man to step in and be the head of the household, it needs to be a marriage. My opinion, holla at me in the comments, okay? So what about other forms of submission like BDSM in the community? And there is a lot of BDSM in our community, not a lot, but there are pockets of it in the community. And there's a faction of our community that is interested in BDSM. And just so you are clear, it's a bondage, dominatrix, sadomasochistic. And where this word is, submission is also thrown around, and it's basically the sub-dom relationship. Yeah, didn't think we were going there, did you? So in those types of relationships, it's actually more of a power dynamic, okay? You feel like because you have a dom, and dom is short for the dominating person or the dominatrix, and you feel like you have a sub is short for submissive, that the dom has the power, but that's actually out of order. The submissive person has the power. They are the ones that set the rules. They are the ones that set the safe word, and they are the person who says this is okay, this is not okay. And the minute that the dom sets out of line with these rules, then it needs to be shut down. Now, unfortunately, this has also been abused in different settings and become a problem, where people are being abused in the name of trying to find their space in this community. And that's, it's unfair and it's sad. So the submissive person is the person that has the power, and in that type of relationship. And so that needs to not be overlooked. So we also talked about gender roles, one of our last hot topics that we talked about on the Facebook group. And I had posted a thing. I had posted a comment on the A Dose of the Dime Facebook group. And definitely we were talking about Tamika and Keith. Tamika is a surgeon who was making over, I mean, obviously this was a made up scenario, but she was making over $400,000 a year. Keith being a manager, making $40,000 a year. And definitely we were talking about what gender roles have been kind of turned into, because it talked about Tamika's family was saying that she was in the wrong and that she should not, unfortunately, be paying for him, and that he needed to be the man and start paying all the bills, which, okay, so that's where we kind of put it out there. What do you think about that? Tamika obviously having the bulk of the money, paid the bulk of the bills. Keith, obviously being a good man, handled everything else. So we talked about it, and I love my dime pieces because they came through as they thought they would. They stayed on logic side. Um, and stated that if it works for them, it works for them. I have a friend, unfortunately, who was like a I have a friend who was an accountant. She and her husband her husband's from Jamaica. 3 kids. Now she makes bank. She makes a nice amount of money, but her husband he was struggling to keep a job. And so what they did is they flip-flopped. He stayed home with the baby. She had the babies and went back to work. And then he stayed home with the babies and raised them. And it works for them. They are loving and fun. And I've not ever heard a harsh word come out of anybody's mouth. I mean, they're crazy and I love them. But other than that, yeah, if this works for you, then absolutely, I feel like that you shouldn't worry about what anybody else thinks about your relationship. At the end of the day, this is you and yours, and how you make it work. Sometimes you have to make it work the best way that you know how. Okay. And it may not look the same to everybody else's. Okay. So I have some comments. Okay. On the chat, and I want to just kind of briefly go through it. I have some definite examples about grandparents that stayed married for 50 years. My parents were married for roughly 50 years. They adopted me late. So they were an older couple. And yeah, the submission was on point. Like literally, I never saw them fight. I always saw them discuss. That came with is negative points for me as a person, but for them it was beautiful. I mean, the loving relationship that I saw between them was so beautiful. So I see another comment from Tracy Patterson that says today's woman thinks submission is weakness and not strength. So I don't ever generalize. There are absolutely some women that think that. But here's the thing. Those of us who have seen submission in action do not feel like it is a sign of weakness. As a matter of fact, we know you have to be specifically strong in your mental dexterity in order to keep your comments in a respectful manner when it comes to where it is that your husband is leading you. Now, again, submission is not following blindly. It is putting in your input and moving forward with your husband as he leads. But it's not for the weak, because you will absolutely have some hardships that you two will come up against together. So I get it. Okay. And it says you both come into a relationship with a purpose and a plan to build your relationship. Yeah, that's beautiful. I agree. Definitely that is part of the submission. And you're building an empire. When we talk about like our Jay-Z's and our these other people on the that are stars, they came in to build an empire. I wholeheartedly believe that when Jay-Z is backing Beyonce when she's up there shining, and vice versa. But people don't understand that that's also a form of submission, that pushing someone to let you shine. That's a beautiful form of submission, as a matter of fact. So when it's her time to shine, that might be his plan for the family. I think it was Fantasia and her husband that actually really put the game into a different light. It's like, I support her. I have her best interest at heart. My goal is to make sure that she is ahead of the game. And he makes the bulk of the decisions for the household because he is invested in her. And that's what I'm saying. Submission can be a beautiful thing if you're interested in it. But obviously, not everybody is, because not everybody was brought up in the same way. So I'm looking at another comment. If they have an agreement, I'm assuming you're talking about Tamika and Keith. If you have an agreement on what should have taken place, does it matter what others say? No, ma'am, it does not. No, ma'am. And that is my point. At the end of the day, if it works for your family, who cares what anybody else thinks? No one else has to live with that person but you. Okay. So definitely understand that submission, I think, is a mental thing, and that you put your own definitions on that. And so and I'll put it out here like this, because this is a question that I want to pose to the audience, and you guys can hit me up in the comments or whatever, and we could talk about it later. So my mom was a registered nurse. So she made the bulk of the money. She had the college degree. My father didn't even graduate from high school, but he was a successful businessman. He had mastered 3 successful businesses before she died, just to make ends meet. And she was 4 years older than him. Her social bracket was just a little higher than his. So with that being said, and they're not equally yoked, blah, 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 should she have submitted to him? They had a beautiful relationship. So 15 years, and I'm saying 15 years after her death, because she died when I was younger. 15 years after her death, when I questioned or asked my dad about my mom, he still broke down and cried because he said, and I quote, "That was my soulmate," which is what makes it so hard for you guys out there for me, because I had a real one. My dad was a real one. Okay. But with that being said, yes, submission can be a beautiful thing. It can make a beautiful relationship. And for anyone who feels like, oh, well, he doesn't love her, yeah, if you got the right one and you guys are building on a pure form of submission, then absolutely. I so appreciate the fact that a man can express himself in a way that is beautiful. Well, that is my time, guys. I want to leave you with the affirmation. My partner and I naturally share a profound love with each other. I have abundant gratitude for my beautiful relationship. My partner and I naturally share a profound love with each other, and I have abundant gratitude for my beautiful relationship. All right, guys, you be blessed, and hopefully you will see me back here at the same time next week, Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on the Batchelor News Radio Network. Have a good night.